Hello and welcome to Shift Talk. My name is Chad. With me, as always, is the man, the myth, the individual with too small of a turbo. That would be Gregson. Welcome everyone to the show. Hope you're having a great day. Greg, how you doing?
Doing well. Pretty tired, but doing well. We're here. We're doing it. We're gonna talk cars, and hopefully that'll wake us up.
We're doing it live.
We're doing it live. We're going live. We'll do it live.
Yeah, I was gonna say like
what's his name? Bill O'Reilly.
yeah, not a clue on this or any other world. I think it was him.
Yeah, it was him. It was like early in his career. F it, we'll do it live.
But yeah, no, I'm right there with you. Like Greg and I, as you might imagine, we don't just like say, "Hey, Greg's on, okay, sweet, hitting the live button," right?
Yeah.
Don't do that. We were talking about this a little beforehand, but like I'm in the process of moving, as some of you may or may not know. So I'm going room by room and just disassembling and getting as much stuff out as I possibly can. And I disassembled my room yesterday. It's about, I think the only thing left is a deck, a shelf, a desk, a shelf, and a dresser that need to come out of the room. And that room...
A deck is very impressive in your room.
Yes.
Yes, I have a widow's walk that I walk out onto every morning, and I'm like, "Good day," just like a pirate on a ship.
Hello, peasants. But no, like, and a bunch of that stuff, as you might imagine, is pretty heavy. But the thing I wasn't really anticipating was the fact that I'm like, oh, I'll just go sleep in the guest room. That's a newer mattress, like a slightly bigger bed. Should be more comfy, yada yada yada. Turns out that mattress is softer. So like,
oh no.
So it's like one of those. So I didn't get a great night's sleep. I mean, I don't have, kids and a wife, so I'm not even trying to compare it to your life.
No, it's all good. But
But
we'll keep the intros short and sweet tonight because we're gonna get to the news because we are tired. But there's some interesting stuff we got to talk about today.
yes, there is. Sorry, I'm just.
No, you're good.
So I did want to preface tonight's show with a thing. As you know, we've kind of sort of like soft launched the new name of the show.
Yes.
We're also going to attempt to be something remotely resembling, what's the word I'm looking for here? Organized.
Correct.
So we're going to start trying. We're
new and different.
Yeah, it's basically going to be the exact same show, and may or may not love. But we're going to try to break this down into segments.
Yes.
And generally speaking, we talk about three different things here in the broader scheme of cars. We talk about news, we talk about motorsports, and we talk about our cars, seeing as how Greg is refusing to make his car faster, despite his notable write-ups with management.
Nah, sorry. Screw management.
And my car being, down for the count until, obviously, the aforementioned move is done. We're not going to have much of that stuff. Hopefully, April, May, June, that time frame, we'll have some more exciting news on that front. But we're going to kick tonight's show off with what we're not at all calling going forward, and what I'm totally thinking right now in the moment off the top of my head is Greg's Newsiest of News segment.
The newsiest of news is, well, there's a couple things. There's news from Porsche. There's news from Chrysler, which is not good news for them. We've got news from Infiniti, and then we've got some motorsports news. So we're covering all the bases here. But I think we should start off with Infiniti because it might not seem very interesting at first, but I have me thinks of something, and we can keep it quick just to do some quick hitters here. But Infiniti announced that they're going to be coming out with a Red Sport QX80. And if you don't know what the QX80 is, it's a monstrous SUV. It's their big one. But Red Sport's an interesting name in Infiniti lore because, well, that's the one with the fancy engine and the funsies in it, right? So Red Sport, interesting. What do we think that that's going to have? Oh, probably just some trim packages because it's a big SUV. What are they going to do with it, right? Blah, blah, blah. Turns out that they might actually throw a 600 horsepower engine into this thing, which is
actually a 600 horsepower engine, or is it a like their existing engine now with hybridization?
So there's not 100% specifics on it as of yet. But what other car in the Nissan range and realm just got killed off and has 600 horsepower, Chad? It ended its long-term run. It's a legendary sports car. Blah blah blah.
The GTR?
Yes. So that's sort of where I was going with this. Is interestingly enough, the GTR had around 600 horsepower. So I'm wondering if this is a precursor to the next GTR, or at least an inkling into the next GTR. Because why on earth would Nissan have a 600 horsepower anything if not to put it in some of their other stuff? So for me, I think it's also an interesting thing to be putting into other Infinitis. Again, it's an Infiniti QX80. It is not exciting, but big SUV engines sometimes make it into sports cars.
This is the way.
This is the way. And if they want to sell stuff, they put it in a big SUV first, and then, oh, by the way, we have a 600, 700 horsepower engine we can just slap into the new G whatever the hell it is, or the new GTR. And now the GTR magically isn't electric. And Infiniti has a comparable sports car. Something to think about. It just means that they can do it.
Yes, or this is the crossoverification of, we brought out a spicy model. It's crossover. It's a big, well, is it a crossover or is it a body on front? Is it the Armada in Infiniti, guys?
Yes, correct.
So this is basically like what the Armada Nismo should have been without the ludicrously stupid body kit.
Yes.
Again, keeping this one quick, like if this is an internal combustion engine making 600 horsepower, I'm here for it. For the simple reason is, like you said, there's a long-standing tradition of taking the engines that are designed to lug around big, heavy things, trucks, SUVs, big-ass sedans back in the day, and putting that engine into something smaller, which is really cool. As sort of the quote-unquote engine guy, I'm curious what engine they're using, because the little 3-liter twin turbo that's in the Z that they've been using in the sedans for years now, I'm curious if this is a variant of that with just a better rotating assembly, which if it is, kudos Nissan, well done. Liking where you're going on that. Or again, as we'll kind of touch on with the headline news, is this a version of that engine that's making 400 horsepower and the other 200 horsepower is hybrid? Because I would be less excited for that.
Right. Wow.
Wait, you really emphasized that.
Yeah, my phone fell. I had it standing up, and it just fell and scared the bejesus out of me. And they say, how many sell around 600 of these autograph trims? And I'm looking through here, and I don't see anything about if it's hybridized or anything. I think it's more of just, this is a pie in the sky thing currently, but they are going to end up making it. I just don't think that they are really giving a ton of, they're not really giving a ton of information here, but they're saying next spring, expected to hit dealer showrooms next spring with an even more powerful variant to arrive in 2028. So they're saying roughly 600 horsepower next spring, 680 horsepower the following year, which is very interesting. So, look, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that this is sort of a precursor to the next GTR or some other sports car in the Nissan sphere of influence. I think it'd be very cool. That being said, a Nissan Armada with 680 horsepower in Infinity trim also sounds ridiculous. And I also kind of want to drive it as we've driven some big horsepower SUVs, and I've also driven the normal Armada, and it's a big freaking boat. So yeah, I kind of want to drive it just for the ridiculousness of it.
Yeah, and not for nothing. What is it? Red Sport.
Red Sport.
Boomers are having horrible flashbacks to the Red Scourge. Let me put it to you this way, and I think this is a good spot to end, and we'll move on to the next one.
Yes.
If this is a precursor of what's to come, i.e., Red Sport becomes more of a thing, having those cars that sort of punctuate the model range, even if you're a Nissan and you're using, we'll just say, to be kind, not the latest and greatest in terms of technology,
yeah,
but you have a Red Sport line that's competitive enough with your M's, your F's, your AMGs, your RS, like those type things.
Yeah.
And you can get eyeballs and people saying, holy cow, you have an Infinity that's going toe-to-toe with like an M4. Or,
right.
You know, that is a methodology of showcasing the brand. The only thing is I will say with this, is they have to do it right, and they have to at least make the interior feel modern, contemporary.
Yes. Modern
if it's just
and luxurious too, because
right,
Infinity's pretty decent at that, but they're not like they need to take it to the next level.
You know, that could mean good things, and then, like you mentioned at the start, it's a good trickle down. You know,
exactly.
You know, to what the next GTR is going to be, which, admittedly, I don't have a ton of high hopes for, but that's a topic for another day. Hit me with the next one.
All right, the next one. Which did we say? We were going to do Dark Horse or Voyager?
Let's just get the Voyager one out of the way because I could care less.
Yeah. Yes, same. But it's interesting just in historical terms. Chrysler is now a one-car company. They have literally nothing else. When they have the Chrysler Pacifica, which is their minivan, apparently, I didn't even know this. They had a cheaper version of it called the Chrysler Voyager, and they've now 86'd that from their lineup. So now Chrysler is a minivan company because that's all they sell. Literally one thing, the Chrysler Pacifica. And that's it. For a company that's steeped in automotive tradition and lore and performance back in the day, quite frankly. It's a little weird, but I don't understand why they're still a company. Just kill them off. Put the minivan elsewhere and make it a Dodge something. I don't know. Whatever. Make it something else and just be done with Chrysler. To have Chrysler as a nameplate still kind of doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Chrysler was, at least for us growing up, and most of its ethos was being that mid-range, that middle ground between your sort of average cars. And when I say that, I mean, like, think of it like you have your Chevys and then you have your Cadillacs, right? And then Buick kind of slotted in the middle. There's another company that's pretty much only being kept alive by China.
Yeah.
And then that's where Chrysler kind of fit in, but it also had sort of the muscle car head to it and whatever and ever. Who cares? Honestly, I think there's a place in this world, especially right now, for a decent minivan that is a decent price. You know, I think there's a lot of people out there who are like almost looking at minivans as nostalgia. It's like the minivans came out and they were ubiquitous, like crossovers, and everybody got minivan fatigue, and then crossovers took over, and now everyone's getting crossover fatigue. So like a minivan could be like, you know, for people our age or something like that, it's like, this could be interesting. But, you know, next question.
Yeah. Yeah. Will be interesting to see what happens because they've been wanting to revive it, but I doubt it's going to happen. All right. Next thing is I recently made a short on the official price of the Ford Mustang Dark Horse SC. SC, of course, standing for supercharged or supercharger. And it's going to cost $103,490 in base trim. Now, there's other potential leaks out there, and I think this is we're now officially doing it. The track pack, so the mid-range, $139,990, and that adds Brembo carbon ceramic brakes, Pilot Sport Cup 2Rs from Michelin, and more aerodynamic upgrades, probably diffuser and wing related, and front fascia related. That would be my guess. That were also developed alongside the GTD and GT4 race car. Very cool. At the top of it, we have the Track Pack SE or Special Edition, which is going to set you back $170,970. And this will get exclusive painted hood graphics, unique solar red upholstery, and the carbon fiber appearance package. All versions come with the same supercharged V8 and Tremec 7-speed dual clutch transmission. That is a lot of money for any car, let alone a Mustang. The GTD, just so that we all set a baseline here, is $300,000 and is a homologation special, sort of.
No, 100% is.
They're making what, 2,000 of them? And I think that's it.
They're making as many as is required to be allowed to use it as a base for the GT3 car.
Right.
They're not making one more than they have to.
Yeah.
Because even they know it's a ridiculous thing to have a Mustang that expensive.
Correct. Yes. So I would also argue it's also a ridiculous thing to have a Mustang this expensive. However, the Mustang is no longer one of the new age Mustangs. The Mustang is now a serious performance sports car. It's not an old Mustang, if you will. The Mustang now is a performance car, Rich. It really is. So it's a lot of money now for all of this SC gloriousness. Chad, what are your thoughts on said topic?
So it's kind of a multi-layered question, or it's a question that has multi-layers as far as the answer.
Yes.
So first and foremost, it's not just Mustangs that are getting more expensive.
Oh, that's true.
What was it? In 2019, the average purchase price of a brand new car in this country was $35,000.
In what year, sorry?
In like 2019.
Yeah, it's something around there, yeah.
And it's about 50,000 now.
Yep. I think it's like 55, 56 now.
Like,
which is insanity.
So we're not even talking performance cars like Mustangs, Corvettes, Porsches, whatever. We're talking about the average.
Mm-hmm.
So the Mustang, being that it's not a average car, right? Like even in its most basic bare bones EcoBoost trim, it's still a 2+2 coupe, rear wheel drive. Not a family car, right? Like
no.
So there's that side of it, and then this goes along with it. In 2020, when the GT500, the S550 GT500 debuted, it was $77,000. Now, if you adjust that for inflation, it's in today's money, that's $97,000.
Yep.
Which isn't too far off the base price of this.
No.
And I've seen a lot of people making comparisons of there's a Mustang that's more expensive than a Z06. Right?
Right.
Or similarly priced, depending on how you go. To which I say, yes, but also there's now Corvettes that are deep into the six figures as well. It's a sign of the times.
Correct.
It does suck that the top of the range Mustang is this expensive. And I think two things are hurting this car immensely. Number one is the name.
Yep.
Like, if you wanted to keep the Dark Horse nomenclature, just call it the Dark Horse Cobra. And then for the track or the track edition special edition, or the special edition track pack as it's listed here, call that, I don't know, I'm just pulling something off the top of my head, the Dark Horse Cobra R.
Right.
And
Cobra,
that pulls.
the Cobra name isn't owned by Shelby, right? It's
No.
Just Shelby is. Like, the Cobra can be whatever.
So there have been Mustang. So you had the famous Fox body Cobra and Cobra R.
Right.
You had the famous New Edge, which is still a Fox body but different bodywork, which had the Cobra and Cobra R, and that's just the name that Ford has. I mean, it obviously has, ties to Shelby, but it's not exclusively Shelby, because as we've mentioned 9 bazillion times here, they couldn't name this the Shelby without re-upping their agreement with Shelby American.
Right.
The second thing that's hurting this car, and you're going to laugh when I say this, is the Coyote.
Now, you're going to have to expand on that one for me.
Think of it this way. Shelby American has, I think, like 3 or 4 different variants of a base Dark Horse with custom bodywork, suspension upgrades, etc., with 830-ish horsepower, give or take. RTR has 2 different variants of an 800-plus horsepower supercharged Mustang with bodywork of varying degrees, upgrades, suspension, yada, yada, yada. Right? We haven't seen anything from Roush yet, and they're usually at the forefront of this sort of stuff. All of those cars come with a basic Gen 4 Coyote. It's not a Predator-based engine. And they come with a stick shift, a manual. Now, should you have a manual in a car that makes that much horsepower? Who knows? Not a conversation not the conversation or the point or what have you. But to the average person unless you're Tony, hi Tony, I'm messing with you, buddy. But there are people out there who don't care for manuals. Just like there are people out there who are just like, if it doesn't have a manual, I don't want it. Can you afford it? No. Why does it fucking matter?
Exactly.
But that's going to give it more panache and more quote-unquote street cred amongst enthusiasts. And now Ford comes out with a special edition Mustang, which is... The Dark Horse SC is better in almost every conceivable way. I'll leave the appearances to whether you like it or not. That's not the point I'm making. It is better in every conceivable way than those Dark Horse builds done by these other companies. Better suspension, better brakes, better transmission. Again, whether it's a manual or not, that DCT box it's fast, right? And if your ultimate goal is ultimate lap time, that's going to be faster.
Yeah.
I actually really like the way these things look. So that's what's going to hurt this. The fact that it doesn't have a name that immediately wants you. It has a name just seemed to be plucked out of thin air with no callback to any sort of Mustang heritage other than the Dark Horse, which, let's face it, is an S650 creation.
Right. And that might be what they're going for. Maybe they're trying to start a new tradition.
Right. I mean, at one point, Cobra wasn't really a thing. At some point, Shelby wasn't really a thing, although it had connections to a race team, right?
Yeah.
Like, I totally get that. And then, who knows? And who knows? Like, down the road, we might look at Dark Horses, especially as less and less and less and less cars of this type exist. We might look at it and be like, we were a little too hard on that car, or what have you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't. at the end of the, like I said, at the end of the day, like we kind of knew what this car was going to be. I hate the fact that almost every single report you read on these things says something to the effect of 700 plus horsepower. It shouldn't have that. It should be knocking on the door of 900. Otherwise, it's going to be not a failure because it's objectively a good car because it's effectively a GT500 with a new bodywork and updated everything. You know, it's like it's instead of being 2.0, it's like 1.5, right? Kind of a deal. So yeah, like I like it, but like I don't know if it's the fact that it doesn't have a catchy name, if it's this or the fact that I'll never be able to afford one. But I don't know. It doesn't spark the holy shit that the GT500 did. I still maintain to this day the S550 GT500 Mustang is one of, if not the best looking Mustangs that have ever existed.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Also, real quick.
That's a good take.
Fun fact. We have shifting gears in chat. No relation.
Seriously? That's amazing.
Yeah, on YouTube.
Nice. Also, very close to copyright infringement, my friend. It's okay. I'm just kidding. I don't care.
Yeah, I know you are. I don't have a response for that. And he just goes, the Dark Horse SC should have been the return of the Terminator Cobra. Yeah, it's like I said, like obviously the Terminator was great in its day, and argument could be made that it sowed the seeds for what would become the Hellcat engines that we knew and loved. V8 supercharged, ridiculous supercharger whine. More power than most people think that a car of that type should have. All of that sort of stuff. I don't want the Terminator to come back because, you know, Coyote and whatever. But no, you're absolutely right there. Yeah, I don't know. There's just something about it that it isn't moving the needle for me. And I think it's because they haven't released the horsepower because it's less than all of the variants I've already talked about. You know, your Shelbys, your RTRs, etc. And yeah, we got a storm going.
Yeah, it's like, oh.
You know, and like that doesn't make any fucking sense. Yeah. Because I don't want to go too deep into a Coyote engine rant because you guys are definitely going to get your fill of that when I start to rebuild the Mustang.
Yes.
But they're very different engine. Well, not very different, but you can notice right off the bat, take the cylinder head off of them, you can notice it where the water jackets are specifically. The Predator block is much stronger, and yet a Predator is going to make less horsepower than the base Coyote.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you could tune it to make a hell of a lot more, but that's one of those things where it's like, that's like, and this will be a perfect segue for it, unless you had anything you wanted to add.
I mean, you kind of said it all. The only thing is, I'd say the other problem with this car is the price. You said the biggest problem is the Coyote. I'd say the other biggest problem is the price. But I know why they're doing it. They're trying to compete with the Corvette. But other than that, like, you know, things are going up.
The price is a side effect of what it is in the era it's in.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like,
look at Corvettes.
Right.
I don't care that the Corvette is a mid-engine supercar. The ZR1 can make over 1,000 horsepower. All of that stuff. It says Corvette on it, and it's double the damn price of the other, like, more than double.
Yeah.
Like that, right? Like, both of these cars need to just rein it in.
Yeah.
Understand what they are, but they won't because people will buy. This will sell out. I guarantee it.
Correct. 100% they'll sell out. There is way too much stupid money in the world, and not saying that spending this is stupid money. I just mean stupid as in like a lot. So yeah, these 100% will sell out. There's no doubt in my mind that will happen. But it's interesting. We'll see what happens and where they go from here. But 170 grand is a lot for any car, in my opinion.
Right, but also last thing I'll say on this, but also Think about it this way. When we were growing up, the idea of a 700, 800 horsepower Mustang that you could go to the dealership and buy. Like,
Yeah.
when
That's wild.
when the spiciest, you know, prior to the S550, the spiciest Mustang you could get made 690 horsepower, which is a lot.
Yes.
And that's basically a pencil sharpener compared to these new engines.
That's right. So,
That's exactly right, Tony. Why would they lower the price if they sell out? And they're going to sell out. So, like, someone's going to pay the price, and that's the thing.
that's it.
It is what it is. Guess what? Guess what? I had a Mustang that made more power than a GT500, and I had just as much fun in it as I would have in a GT500, and it cost half the price with everything involved. So,
Yeah, it's parts, labor, and bits.
and because Tony woke up and chose violence in the comment section, I am going to address his most latest content. No, once again, kidding. He goes, they should raise prices if anything. No.
No.
Vet is basically the fastest car on the planet. Can't make them fast enough. Right, but at what point are we building Corvettes to compete with Koenigsegg's?
That's the thing.
Right? Like, that's not the ethos of the Corvette. Is it cool that a Corvette is ridiculously fast and compared to that type of car, a bargain? 100%. But that's never been the ethos of the car. It was supposed to be the car that did everything that beat all of the best Europe had to offer, the best Japan had to offer, the best the rest of the world had to offer, and it did it for a significantly lower price tag.
Yeah.
You know, that was always the charm of the Corvette. And then you had stuff like the Mustang, who gave you 80%, 90% of that feeling while not being nearly as fast, but it was also significantly less expensive than that Corvette. Like, if every car that has ridiculous performance numbers just gets a ridiculous price tag, that segment of the automotive industry will die. And but I will say this. It's opened the door for Mopar and Chevy and anyone else who wants to build a true pony car that's lighter than the Mustang, still has a V8, but you don't need to make a gazillion billion horsepower, and sell it at 80 to 90% of the price of a Mustang GT or a Mustang Dark Horse. I guarantee you, someone who's able, and the interior, just make sure it doesn't rattle, it doesn't buzz, and it has a mildly quality feel to it. Because let's face it, modern interiors are just dash panel here, big ass screen, some knobs, and that's it. Kind of hard to fuck that up. Some companies do.
Yes. A lot of companies do.
But it takes effort.
Yeah.
So
let's keep talking about fast cars.
Okay.
Because
new turbo for the Polestar?
I mean, well, no, not that one. No, because while the Mustang Dark Horse SC is going to be very fast, no doubt, the 2026 Porsche 911 Turbo S will be faster, because that is one of the epitomes of speed at this point in all of automotivedom. And yeah, it's really quick, because apparently these things are now scratching, and this is a weird thing to say, these are now scratching and equaling Tesla Model S Plaid variants. And for a minute there, Tesla Model S Plaid was the speed king on everyone's radar, because it did a 199 and did a 2-second 0 to 60 time. Well, guess what the new Turbo S is going to be doing? 2-second 0 to 60 times, which is actually insane. And if anyone was going to solve it with an internal combustion engine, it was probably going to be Porsche, because of how the Turbo S is, how the Turbo S launches. They just needed to put more power to the road, get better rubber there, rein in the traction as much as they humanly can. But Basically, what this thing is turbo. It's a tenth of a second quicker than the Turbo S lightweight, and a tie with the 986 or the 986 horsepower Ferrari SF90 Stradale hybrid, which is the quickest gas engine cars to 0 to 60 the car driver has ever tested. Quarter mile apparently in 9.7,
which you'll never be legally allowed to do.
Correct. There's like, yes. So if you want to take it to a drag strip, you will be allowed to do it once, because you will go, they will go, oh, new Turbo S, cool. You're coming to run for tonight? Yeah. And then you're going to do a 9.7. They're going to be like, get out. You're going to be one and you're done. That's it. So unless you're caging, full roll cage and full track prep and full everything with flame suit and blah, 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 you will never be able to run this at a quarter mile at a strip anywhere in the country. So either way, the speed, the quickness, and the quarter mile time are ridiculous. And that quarter mile, that 9.7 quarter mile goes in 142 miles an hour, which these numbers are like, it's so funny. Like back in like, early 2000s, you owe me a 10-second car. It's like, cool. Porsche does that from factory now. Like in 20 years or 22, 23 years, we've gone from the buildiest builds to ever build to factory 911 can do whatever the hell you want and beat basically anything from the last 4 decades that you've built ever. Like, that's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. And I know you have thoughts on this because you told me you had thoughts on this pre-show. So, go.
How much does it weigh?
Ooh, that's actually a great question. I don't know. Let's see. Tipping the scales at 3,833 pounds.
That is girthy for a 911.
Well, I mean, for a 911, yeah. I mean, that's essentially what the S550 Mustang GT weighed, right?
Yep, that's what my car weighs.
I was gonna say that's essentially a Mustang GT. So for a Porsche 911,
but the Porsche is a sports car because.
Well, I mean, ever since the S550 came out, the Mustang's been a sports car. Period. I'd argue that point. It's not the same as the Porsche 911 in sports car terms, but I would say the Mustang, that was the point when Mustang went from a muscle car and a pony car to a pure sports car, in my opinion. The S550 was the nexus point of becoming a sports car for the Mustang. But you're not wrong. 3,800 pounds is heavy. But the fact that it can do 0 to 60 and still be 3,800 pounds is very impressive. Just like,
I mean, we see all these. We see a lot of
6,000 pounds.
Fuck it to hell. Dodge Challenge or Dodge Demon.
Yeah.
The USS Demon. Over 4,000. I think they were like 4,400 or 4,500 pounds.
I think they're pushing close to 5, actually.
Yeah,
it's a lot. They're huge. They're huge.
Hey, thanks for tuning in, Tony. Good luck and go dominate the courts.
Yeah,
but this goes to my greater point, and this is kind of a similar thing. I was saving it for this segment, but I have kind of similar thoughts on like the Dark Horse SC and a lot of these performance cars, even like stuff like the Corvette, where they're fucking heavy too. I understand modern cars have to have at least a certain amount of weight because they have to carry around at bare minimum certain safety stuff. I get it. No sense in having this car that's really, really nice and really, really fast and really, really good if it's like, oh, you had an accident at 35 miles an hour, you're dead, right? Like,
right.
Kind of bad for repeat business if your cars, kill your buyers. Yeah. But okay, let's just look at it from the performance standpoint of it. That is epic. That is exactly what you'd expect out of Porsche, and the fact that it is a 9-second car with about 700 horsepower.
Yeah.
Porsche does more with horsepower than any other manufacturer. Any other manufacturer. Look at the GT3 RS lap times around the Nürburgring.
Yeah.
And in its like what in its spiciest state of tune, it's making somewhere between 550 and maybe in the driveway looking at the house that is 600 horsepower. Like, meanwhile, Corvette ZR1X, or I'm sorry, meanwhile the ZR1X is literally double that. Even the regular ZR1, half the cars it's fighting with are making 3, 4, 500 horsepower more than it.
Yeah.
Like, that is an insane testament to the engineering that is Porsche.
That's wild.
But across the board, these sports cars, look at, I don't know what the Germans are doing. I don't know what kind of, sauced up brandy absinthe they've been drinking lately. But the new M4, M3, girthy as fuck. Same for the M5. They're like, hey, we're bringing back the RS5. It's going to be a wagon. It looks awesome. Blah, blah, blah. It's fucking huge.
Sure is.
I got to imagine, Michelin, Pirelli, all the tire manufacturers are like, come on. Could you have a little less horsepower and a lot less weight?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's to anyone who's driven a lighter car with enough power, that driving experience is inherently better than driving a car that's... Sure, that Porsche is looking at Isaac Newton's laws of physics, the way Debo looks at, your watch, right? It's just going to pummel it into submission. It's haha, we win, right? But, momentum is a thing. It's a very, very, and the only way you control it is effectively, if you boil it down to its simplest terms, heat, i.e., big ass brakes, heat, suspension, all this. Someone has to be brave enough to make a fast, internal combustion cars stop trying to compete with electric. Stop. In terms of straight line performance. It's ultimately a battle you will lose. Right? And who knows? Maybe for the overwhelming majority of people who buy these cars, that kick in the ass off the line is what they love about the car. Maybe that's it. Maybe I'm just wrong. Maybe I'm a part of the segment that really is just of a bygone era. Maybe I'm completely wrong on this. But I don't know. If you were to come out and make a 3,500-ish horsepower car, sports car, with 300 to 500 horsepower, that you could roll your own gears in, and was, again, affordable enough, those things would fly off the shelves. We got to get, the horsepower wars are over. You're never going to win that measuring contest at the local country club because there's always going to be someone there with something faster. And when, again, straight line speed, I hate to break it to you, unless you're building an actual drag car, the EVs have won. And I don't care.
Yeah. You're right.
But again, this is hugely important. This is huge. But when you look at the Porsche, it's not 5,000 pounds. So I do have to give credit to Porsche for doing that.
Yes.
But also, again, why are we giving people on the street the ability to go to 60 miles an hour in less than 2 seconds? Or less than almost 2 seconds? Can we just have a moment and sit here and say, because you can afford a Porsche means you can handle horsepower and speed better than the dipshits who can afford a Mustang, if we're using the internet joke as a line of demarcation on that?
Right. The first thing I ever wrote when we had a website that we were writing on, shiftingladies.com, by the way, go there, pick up your merch.
Well done.
Is everyone on the planet, especially in the United States, should retake their driver's test every year. And I'm not walking that back. I think that should still be a thing. If you want to drive, it's a privilege, and you should be tested on it every year because, quite frankly, 99.9% of people on the road do not deserve to have a driver's license, period. End of discussion, in my opinion. However, if you are going to have a car that is going to have well over 500 horsepower, probably even over 400 horsepower, I would say, you need to take a special driver's test to be able to handle said car. You should spend no less than 10 hours on a skid pad. You should spend no less than 10 hours on a track. And you should spend no less than 10 hours at a drag strip, learning car control, learning speed control, and learning how speed works. That is it. Like, it's never going to happen because profits. It's never going to happen because people are lazy and money talks. And that's basically all that matters. But quite frankly, giving someone a car that has this much power, can go this fast, is basically like handing them a loaded pistol with no training and saying, figure this out. So, like, if you're going to do that, you need to be properly trained on it, quite frankly. And that's just, that's how the world should work in this realm. You should have a specialized license for that, because I'd be willing to wager that almost no one, there are some, almost no one that has this money that wants to buy these cars has no idea how to handle cars at all. So I think it should be a law, and we should lobby for it and pass that, because you make a great point. If you're going to have something that can go 0 to 60 in 2 seconds, and 0 to near 150 in under 10 seconds, you should really learn how to drive that and handle that properly. If you want to be a chef, they don't just throw you in front of a stove and say, "Here you go. Here's your new $10,000 Viking range. Figure it out." They don't do that. If you want to be a chef, they go, "Oh, go to culinary school. Learn how to do these things." You want to drive this $400,000 Porsche that can nuke you? Here you go. You should really figure this out.
That brings up an interesting point. I mean, to your point, not to move on. I do believe that there should be. I don't think we've touched about it, and one of these days we'll sit down and we'll do an actual show and we'll just talk strictly about licensing, and maybe we'll bring out some guests and like have like a round table sort of discussion on it. You're never going to see a special license. I mean, it's crazy to me that you need a special license for like CDL, but not to like walk into a Chevy dealership and buy a 1,000 horsepower Corvette.
Right.
But I got to imagine the auto manufacturing lobbies would be like, "Fuck you, no way," because it goes both ways, right? Like, can they handle it? No. But if you were to sit here and say, go get this special license, and let's just say 50% pass. Right. Well, that is in turn 50% reduction in supercar, sports car, quote unquote high horsepower car sales, which they're already on the razor thin line.
Yeah.
So it could have the knock-on effect of killing off those cars, which I don't want. Yeah. But again, that's a bigger, correct, broader topic. For me, it just boils down to the fact that I think just getting your basic driver's license is too easy. Because at the end of the day, what's the speed limit on the highway? It's 65, 70, 85, depending on where you live. Mm-hmm. Let's just assume, based on my decades of... Has it been decades? Not decades yet. Over a decade. There we go. Almost a decade and a half. Fuck. No, actually a decade. I am getting so sidetracked. My point is when I'm on the highway and you look at it, most people are going 75, maybe 80 miles an hour. I don't care what car you're driving. All of them can do that speed.
Right. That's correct.
All of them are almost 2 tons, maybe sometimes even 3 tons in weight. The momentum at that speed is the same. It does not care if you're in a sports car, a truck, an SUV, a Volvo. It doesn't care. You know, so knowing how you're or on the flip side, when you're on your regular, call it side road in the town, just outside of town, or in the town that you live in, whatever, or what have you. Guess what? If you're coming down a hill in the corner and there's a corner there and you're going 40 miles an hour, the corner doesn't care what you're in. Obviously, tire, suspension, all that plays a factor, but it doesn't care what you're in. Momentum doesn't give a shit where you're in. So, like, that's why I'm saying, like, make the regular driving test a little bit more difficult and at least have the average driver understand. Because I think if you give the average driver at least the same level of attention to detail that we got from our fathers. Also, if your dad's out there teaching your kids to drive, step up, teach them this shit.
Agree.
You know, early too. Like Greg's kids, they're 10 years away from having being able to drive. He should be in the little, like, you know, power wheels and stuff. It's like, you know, okay, let's do laps around here. Oh no, you hit ice and you lost grip in your front wheel. What do you do?
We've had power wheels in the backyard for that exact reason for the last 5 years.
You should have a remote control that has like a hydraulic e-brake that just locks the rear wheels.
No, because with those things, it will literally flip over. So
we'll workshop that.
No, but we'll get them out. We'll get them out on the ice once.
But like, if you have that base of knowledge where you understand in your clapped out Chevy Cobalt from 20 years ago, you will eventually realize, like, if you understand momentum, braking, how time of year affects traction, how rain affects traction, how new asphalt reacts to rain and all that. If you have all of these factors in some basic ass car that maybe makes 200 horsepower, that will scale. That will stick with you. And if you're ever so lucky to have a high horsepower sports car. So you're going to be driving it with more care, theoretically speaking, though I have, like, or what have you. You're at least going to have a better idea of that sort of stuff. Yeah, it's an interesting topic. I'm going to, God damn it, I had a perfect, oh, here we go. I'm going to step aside for a quick second. And yeah. Greg, your topic of the day.
Topic du jour?
Is,
sounds great, I'll have that.
You have the ability and the finances and the interest to attract as many teams as necessary to create your own series in motorsports.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like? Could be anything. Could be open wheel, could be sports car, could be a reimagination of the Can-Am series.
Yeah.
Anything you want. So the types of cars, the horsepower levels, the technology, the types of tracks that they race on, whether it be street, road, ovals, etc. What would the Gregson World Championship look like?
Oh, man. Okay. Very interesting topic. Good topic. If I could race anything, and it's going to be my series. That's a good one, but I have no idea. That's good. It's a good blindside topic. Well, let's start with how I used to game on Gran Turismo, which was like my game of choice. I used to really love the battles of cars that were really close in performance, but weren't necessarily like, the same in a sense, like not spec racing. In the early stages of Gran Turismo, you get like, oh, you have to buy a Honda Civic or Nissan, Sentra or whatever, and you race against all the other Sentras. Like that's like spec racing. That's brand racing, model racing, which is fine, and that's fine. And that's fun, but that's not what I mean. What I mean is just like, oh, you had the GTR versus the WRX, and the WRX was tuned to like 700 horsepower, to where it was like ballistic in a straight line, but it couldn't corner as well as the GTR. So like those battles were like really fun to do in Gran Turismo, and they were challenging. So like something like that. I would be drawn to that, where you could do that. And they've actually done a lot of stuff like that in Japan, where at Tsukuba Circuit, they would take, NSX versus GTR versus Supra, back in the 90s and, and 2000s, and I think even still now. But they would take these like sports cars and fast cars. Excuse me. And they would do that, and it would be, which one got around the best, and you would, the NSXs would be great in the corners. The Supras and the GTRs were heavier and they would be faster in the straights, but the NSXs would be so much faster in the corner. Something like that. That would be fun for me to watch and be a part of and own and do, because that would be, it's interesting to see different cars perform in the same way in different ways, if that makes sense. So performing in the same way, doing the same thing at the same circuit, performing in different ways, your strengths are in different areas. So like, to me, that would be very cool. It's not the peak of motorsport by any means. Like F1, that's the peak of motorsport. World Endurance Championship, rally, World Rally Championship, GT3 racing. A lot of people consider these things as the pinnacle of motorsport. So like things like that. Chad says, so World Time Attack. No, not necessarily Time Attack, because that is sort of what I'm getting at, but it's not a time trial. It's circuit racing. Like it would be, you still have to come in, you'd have to change tires, maybe change drivers, depending on like what it was, but you would have different cars that would all be BOP'd, or balance of powered, to within a second of each other. And that would be really cool to me. I think that would be very fun to watch, or be a part of. Because I used to binge watch those old Japanese videos. They have them all over YouTube, because it was all, different Japanese performance cars. And they would have these amazing drivers from Japanese, lore, amazing drifters, great GT racers. And they would have them in these cars, and they would all be so close. They would all come within, 5-10 lap race, and they would all be within like a couple seconds of each other. And there would be so many, people watching, and they would be like, oh wow, I never expected the Civic to beat the GTR, but it did, because of, Tsukuba's a smaller circuit and it's more corners and there's less, power needed, blah, 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 whatever. I that's just a random example, and I don't even think that happened, but that's sort of like what I would go towards. If I was going to have a dream, like pure performance racing series, it would be something open wheel. I've always loved open wheel racing, kart, IndyCar, Formula One, Formula 2, Formula 3. That's like those are my favorites, just because it would be open wheel. The next in line would be GT racing, just because I love GT racing. It's so fun to watch. It's real cars, GTs, Porsches, Ferraris, Mustangs, what else is in there? Aston Martins. Like, these are real cars that you can go out and buy, which was cool. And that was cool, with NASCAR in the 90s. It felt more like cars you could buy. You could go out and buy a Taurus, and you're like, oh, I get a little NASCAR DNA in there. But that's sort of my that's sort of my thing. There is, if it's going to be a GT racing thing, it's got to be cars that you can buy, and GT3 racing is right there in that sense, which is cool. So for me, Chad, did you hear any of that?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So that's sort of my thing, and I'm going to do the same thing to you. Swap around. And what is the same answer for your question to yourself?
Absolutely. So real quick, before you can go, you're dismissed.
Cool. I thought you were talking to me. He's like, wait, I have a thing.
No, I just want to touch on J. Paul over on YouTube.
All right, cool.
He mentioned. Sorry, I will get me on camera soon here. There we go. J. Paul. We are getting to that when Greg gets back. Hopefully sooner rather than later. We are absolutely going to dive into that. I appreciate you for tuning in. We will absolutely be touching on that. That's going to be in our motor shorts. Anyway, we'll get to that in our motorsports segment, man. Appreciate you viewing and commenting. I'd bring Can-Am back. Here's a car. Here's what it has to have in terms of safety from the monocoque standpoint. I'm going to tell you, you can have front tires of a certain width, rear tires of a certain width, and you have to have a wheelbase that fits within a certain parameter. Other than that, go nuts. So if you want to put in a 5-liter engine that make kind of similar to the way they do World Time Attack and their unlimited classes, where they have rules on the engines and stuff, but the horsepower is not capped. And then just send those cars out. I think would be epic. Granted, it would be ruinously expensive and probably not last, because anytime you have unlimited rules, or I shouldn't say unlimited, but anytime you have sort of that unlimited development, prices go up. And that's what killed LMP1. It's what killed pretty much every racing series you've ever loved, with the notable exceptions of Formula One and NASCAR. But because those series were smart enough to, okay, let's rein in the cost of doing business, so to speak. As far as that would be something. I'd also tweak GT racing. To me, GT3 is undoubtedly my favorite form of motorsport, but it always bugs me that you see a Corvette driving around with 500 horsepower, maybe 600, which is less than the street car. Or, it's cool. The racing's close, and it makes it very exciting to watch. But I would really like to see GT3 cars at 600, 650 horsepower, or have a power to weight ratio in that ballpark. Quintessential GT racing cars, Porsche 911. Just is. So they could probably easily get 600 horsepower out of that engine, especially on race fuels. I mean, shit, all you probably have to do is up the compression. And obviously make sure the cams work and all that other sort of stuff. And allow the teams. Where the fuck was I going with that? But because, one of the knock-on effects, so the hypercar rule set that is now obviously mega popular with OEMs and things of that nature. But the speed and the lap times that it do kind of has a knock-on effect on the rest of the classes. So the LMP2 cars, when they were racing around going up against the old LMP1 cars, they were little rocket ships. They were and you see this in the European Le Mans series because they're running under the older spec. They're within less than a second of the hypercar times around a place like Silverstone. So obviously, if you're going to have your second prototype division, you can't have it competing with the primary prototype division, so you got to make those slower. Well, when you make those slower, you sort of bring them into the clutches of the GT cars. And you have to slow them down. So I personally, pretty much every engine manufacturer that's in hypercar could make easy 700 horsepower without hybridization. So if we make that 780 horsepower with hybrid, or you do it the way they do it, where you can't, whether you're using internal combustion or hybridization, you can't exceed 750 horsepower, whatever, and make everything else faster, I'd be here for it. I'd also, actually, we'll get into F1 a little bit later, but yeah, always had that. I've also, on the more grassroots side of things, really like the idea of having something. How do I put this? Short course, road course racing akin to the way they do like a late model stock or some of your slower late models. You know, where they're not making much more than 350 horsepower. But you could put that, you know, you have kind of like the way current Trans Am is. If you don't know anything about current Trans Am, it's very similar to NASCAR in that they have a mother tube-frame chassis. They put whatever body they want on it. I'd be here for it. Because I think if you just gave someone a blank slate and said, okay, here's your... You could put the torque sensors that they use in IMSA and WEC on the back. Say you can't exceed this much horsepower, or power, or torque, or whatever you want to... Whatever metric people smarter than me have figured out how to bop these cars, BOP. But I think it would be cool to see, like... Maybe you make power like 400. At any rate, I think it would be really, really cool to see something like a K-Series going up against an LS, going up against a Coyote, going up against a BMW Straight 6, or a, you know, like that engine variety that you get in GT racing, but on a more affordable level, right? You know, maybe the car fully built costs $120,000, not $500,000 to $600,000. I think that would be really cool. Hell, imagine late model racing or stock car racing, where you could choose pretty much any engine you want up to a certain displacement, and you couldn't exceed a certain power level. And I don't know. I think it would be hilarious. I wouldn't go this route, but our regular viewer Steve will probably love this. But again, I think it'd be hilarious to see a small block Chevy go up against a K-Series. You know, just because the K-Series would be such a troll car. And these guys would, you know, it would unify fans with them and unify fans against them. Yeah, that would be one of the things. Again, we're getting to Cleetus again as soon as Greg comes back. Speaking of the devil, I would think that if I were to win the lottery, I don't want to go do NASCAR, but doing like late model stuff, or up here probably be more modified. I think it'd be hella fun. But yeah, Greg, short version of it, I want to bring Can-Am back.
That's a good shout. I approve.
You know, but
you're allowed to do that.
Now, J-Pole, the moment you have all been waiting for. Let's transition into our motorsports chat, because I don't want to keep you waiting, and I know I put Cleetus in the thumbnail, so let's get to it. It's over an hour into the show.
Yes.
So if you followed any sort of the news, or at least the social media buzz of this past weekend in terms of motorsports, there are two headlines, so to speak, that are grabbing all of the attention. The first one is the first Formula One race of the season, all of that sort of stuff. All of the overtaking, which is artificial in my opinion, but we'll get to that. But you have all of this dislike, disdain from both fans and drivers about the regs. And then there's some people, like our business partner Hansen, who actually liked the race. Right? And then, of course, you have all the stuff surrounding Cleetus, his move to RCR, the way he's attacking his ascent through NASCAR's ranks. And while generally speaking, not one person has had a bad thing to say about Cleetus the man, or whether or not Cleetus should have said no. Like, every single person has said, if I was in Cleetus' shoes, I'd do the exact same thing he's doing. But it is called into question the methodology in which NASCAR goes about approving drivers. And I started looking at this, and the way my brain works is like, obviously we create content, so I'm all over the map when it comes to creating content. So one week it'll be Cleetus, the next week it'll be a 968 cubic inch big block, the next week it'll be Formula One, then it'll be NASCAR, then it'll be, you know, some news piece that caught my, like, my brain just is all over the place. So it's only natural that stuff sort of merges. And where these two topics of Formula One and Cleetus have sort of merged in a way nobody, I think, no normal person would kind of bring those two together, is it brought up the question, and so I forget the guy who wrote the article, and Will Buxton mentioned this on the Speed podcast. If you were a fan, if you are our age and you remember the old shows on Speed Network or Speed Channel, that podcast is a must listen to. I love it because it covers all of motorsports. It's fantastic. But they brought up the broader question. Who is motorsports for? Why do motorsports? Is it for the OEMs as a test bed for new and future technology? Well, if you look at most modern motorsports, it really isn't. Formula One's kind of there. WEC with the hypercars or IMSA with the GTP cars is kind of there, but like they're pushing the boundaries of hybrid technology more on the OEM side of things or the retail side of things with their street cars than they really are in the motorsports side of things. Is it for sponsors? Right? You have a show, you put the sponsor on the side of the car, they get obviously a marketing value out of it. Same with the OEMs, but now, instead of General Motors doing the whole win on Sunday, sell on Monday thing, you have, I don't know, Tampax doing it, or Big Red, or, insert brand of your choice here doing that. Or is it about the drivers? Because there's no motorsport with no drivers. Just like if you don't have a car, there's nothing to drive. If you don't have drivers, there's nobody to push these things to the absolute limit. And you obviously want the best of the best in your given discipline to put on the best show or to showcase the best. And lastly, is it about the fans? Nobody watches a race. That series is going to go bye-bye. Although somehow Formula E still exists, baffling modern science. Although it's heavily backed by the OEMs, so that's probably why it is. But, and I say all of that because if you look at it we'll start with the lens. If you look at it through the lens of Cleetus. Well, obviously Cleetus racing in a Chevy is good for Chevy. Obviously it's good for sponsors because, let's face it, you're not only going to get the viewership on Sunday or Saturday or Friday when he races, you're also going to get a YouTube video or how many that's going to get another million plus views so it's a no-brainer for sponsors. What about, and then when you look at it from a fan perspective, absolutely, there's no denying he has an immediate impact. However, where it gets tricky is you look at it from the guise of other drivers. And he's received a ton of, we'll call it, criticism. Now, most of these people are using his name to, quote-unquote, draw attention to the way NASCAR selects or approves drivers. But you've had guys like Kyle Busch. You had Jeremy Mayfield come out and talk about this. You've had, former drivers like Dale Earnhardt Jr., Kevin Harvick. You've had all of it. And, of course, one of the loudest voices is the spotter for Bubba Wallace and Freddie Kraft, who I finally got to respond to me after a borderline irrational amount of times commenting on the door bumper clear posts. But regardless. And they seem to have an issue with it. And Greg, if you could take one of the things I've mentioned, whether it be, is motorsports for fans, is it for the OEMs, is it for sponsors, or is it for drivers? Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, which of those do you think is the most important?
All right, well, a lot of these questions I go logical, but I'm going to go, and I usually was like, oh, well, it's partly for the fans, partly for the drivers, blah, blah, blah. I am going to just say it is for the drivers. And that might surprise you, but quite frankly, there is no motorsport without drivers. You can make the same argument for cars, fans, sponsors, whatever. But those that actually drive the car well enough to entertain you and be good at it and make a living at it, that is an insanely rare feat. And quite frankly, the drivers are the most important ones. To me, this is, I don't know, all of this like backseat, armchair, posturing by a lot of these by a lot of these people and those that have been in it before. I know you had mentioned a couple of names that have been in NASCAR but also won races. These aren't just like back of the pack people that were in it for 17 years and never even sniffed the top 10. Some of these people, Jeremy Mayfield, I think you said was one of them. He's won 6, 7, 8 races in his career. These are not he's been competitive at it. He's if you look at the old point system, he's many thousands of points in a lot of those seasons. So it's not like he was just completely out of the thing. And he was one of the ones saying like, oh, they should really vet these people more properly. It was like, but also, you're not as relevant as you think you are, and it's things like this just scream I want to stay relevant in the conversation by not necessarily attacking but critiquing heavily something that's going on currently with someone that's very popular. And that's sort of how quote unquote news works a lot of the time these days. Like, oh, there's this soundbite from this person, that's the big story. And that sounds like, I think we should just everyone should just shut up and let's see if he can drive.
Right.
Honestly.
Right. And I mean, I know I kind of put you on the spot because basically in any sport, whether it be motorsports or not,
right?
Any sport, right? The NFL isn't the behemoth that the NFL is if the fans don't watch.
True.
But the fans have nothing to watch if there's no teams. And the teams have nothing to put on the field if they don't have players, right? Like, same thing in motorsports. But it's an interesting kind of thing because it's so interwoven. And our buddy over on YouTube, J-Pole, he goes, it's for all. And he's not wrong. It's a drive. And I don't want you to disagree with what Greg was necessarily saying because I put him on the spot to choose one.
Right.
And it's the drivers who sell the autographs and sell the products, all meaning manufacturers, promoters, circuits, team owners, sponsors, drivers, etc. Right? And let me put it this way, and I'll circle it to Cleetus, and this whole notion of, is NASCAR's approval process broken? It might be. It might be too easy. However, I remember just a tiny little bit of social media outcry with, say, a Hallie Deegan or some of these other. Now you could say she wasn't talented enough, or you could say she didn't get the right car. But there was noise around her about should she be in NASCAR. I'm not saying one way or the other because I don't know enough. I didn't watch enough of her career to have any sort of opinion that is worth anything. And every year, every day, every single season that motorsports has existed, there has been a driver in whatever level you want to talk about who's either new, who's either not had a ton of experience, or who a lot of people think, regardless of whether they should or they shouldn't, should not be there. It is the methodology in which motorsports works. It's why if you were to ask me that question, I would agree with you that it is the drivers that are the most important because they bring the most to the table. In modern motorsports, it is not like the old days where Gregson Motorsports had a car, had a sponsor, and just needed a hot shoe to fill it.
Right.
Modern motorsports, in every division, you either have a sugar daddy who's paying for everything, and even then, most of their patience runs out, especially as they start ascending ranks and it gets more and more expensive. Or you have a connection, right? Who's the... I can't remember who it was. I want to say it's... Let me just check this real quick. All right, so, yeah, Sergio Perez, who very famously races currently for Cadillac, but has been in a bunch of different Formula One teams, and has had a not outstanding, but not embarrassing Formula One career. One of the biggest reasons why he came up through the ranks as fast as he did, and the reason why he hasn't really left Formula One apart from his, is because he was attached for years with Telmex. So if you signed Sergio Perez, you were getting a guaranteed check from Telmex. And that's how modern motorsports work. All of these drivers, their biggest thing, and I would have loved to have Philippa, one of our Australian friends on the show, to talk about this, because she works with drivers about building their social presence, about building their ability to be seen by sponsors, to go out there and get the funding that they need to continue their motorsport. Because nowadays, it's effectively this. In the lower divisions, if you don't have the money to finance the car, the drive, the whatever, that team doesn't go racing. They just can't do it.
True.
And so this all sort of circles back to Cleetus. Is he moving too fast through the NASCAR ranks? In my opinion, yes, he is. However, not a single soul on this planet would ever just sit here and say, no, I won't do that. If Richard Childress Racing, multiple-time champion, multiple-time Daytona 500 winner, more trophies than we will ever come close to sniffing. Not that we go around sniffing trophies when we are out in public. If he's going to sit here and say, hey, I see the value in having Cleetus drive one of my cars in the O'Reilly series, I don't care if you're Kyle Petty, Jeremy Mayfield, Denny Hamlin, who's had probably the best take on this whole Cleetus thing out of everyone, from a just the logical side of it. Although I agree with Dale Jr. more, would take that for whatever it's worth. Who are any of these guys to say this is bad? I would sit here and argue that if Richard Childress signs off on a driver, that circumvents NASCAR's own approval process. Because he doesn't just put schmucks behind the wheel. I'm not saying Cleetus is going to go out there and do great things right off the bat. He's not. If he's smart, he's going to drive at Rockingham and log laps. That's what he needs. He needs to log laps. Whether it's 12th position or 31st position. Does not matter. Go out there. Log laps. Show the world that even though you're out there and you may not be the fastest guy on the track, that you're also not a... Shut him up as far as he might cause a wreck. He might be a hazard to those chasing points. All of that stuff. You know, and it just, that's the thing that irritates the crap out of me. And not for nothing, when Kyle Petty comes out here and takes his firm stance in the ground against what Cleetus is doing, let's not remember that I think Kyle Petty did 1 or 2 races in ARCA and then went to the Cup Series. That's it. I will admit, obviously he did more grassroots stuff. Obviously, he's a Petty. They were racing short tracks. He was doing all of that sort of stuff. I get all of that. But on the flip side, when that happened, there were a lot of old hats at the time who were like, this kid's moving up too fast. He's not ready, blah, 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 blah. And while he wasn't a champion like Richard, he was a handy driver, a good driver. And the last thing, before I get kind of your thoughts on it, and we move to F1 is, ARCA. Brad Keselowski had an amazing take on this on the Dale Jr. download, filling in for Dale this week. I highly recommend you go watch at least the Cleetus segment, because he does a phenomenal job breaking it down. In the old days, ARCA used to be for the, okay, you're new to National Touring stock car racing, go drive an ARCA car. And that's where all the rookies and sort of the inexperienced people went. Prove you can do it there, and then you move up. The Truck Series was always for the guys who, whether it be sponsorship money, whether it be for one reason or another, they never could stay in Cup. They were crazy talented, but they couldn't stay in Cup, so they just sort of, the Truck Series was kind of where they landed. And then what is now the O'Reilly Series, Grand National, I'm going to make that a thing, was again a developmental series. So I'm not saying the championships there don't matter, because they absolutely do. Right? They absolutely do. But at the end of the day, you're trying to see if a driver can make it to Cup or not.
Right.
So Connor Zilic didn't win the championship last year. Does that mean he wasn't ready for Cup? Fuck no. He's obviously ready. The Connor Zilic is an exception because I like to honestly think like you have to do a certain number of races, and until you get to Cup, you have to be at least like 21. Just because think of how immature you were at 18.
Oh yeah, big time.
And now you're going to stand in front of a camera where hundreds of thousands or millions of people are watching. And so that's why, like, I don't know enough about it. I don't have the experience of a Freddie Kraft or a Tommy Baldwin. Tommy Baldwin seems like you insulted. When he talks about Cleetus, he's talking about it with like you insulted his mother. Now I get it. He was a former team owner, and he's deeply ingrained in the sport. All of that other sort of stuff. But I think like this, in a lot of cases, the middle ground is correct. Does the approval process need tweaking? Yes. Should it be something like Formula One Super License, where you accrue points in lesser series based on finishing, where you finish, how you qualify, all this other sort of stuff? No, in my estimation. Because guess what? That system's still flawed. You know who's still racing for Aston Martin? Lance Stroll. Did he get there on merit? No. Daddy bought the team. Pinnacle of motorsport. So,
pay to play.
You know, and like J. Pole says, boats, planes, drag racing, helicopters, off-road, and more. He just needs the time on high-speed ovals. How can he get that elsewhere? That's the thing. You yell at the guy for not getting experience. He's going to be going it up. He wants to race the super speedways, not necessarily the short tracks. How's he supposed to get that? Take it easy, Sean. Thanks for tuning in, brother. But let me ask you this question point blank. Greg, as opposed to the other person on this call with us who doesn't exist. You're more casual in your motorsports fandom. I'm not saying that as a slight. I'm not saying that as a way to prop myself up or any of that sort of stuff. What I am saying is it from a standpoint of like just a casual observer who used to watch a ton of motorsports before he decided to procreate. Simple yes or no, or not. No, let me rephrase that. Where do you stand on this? Is it good? Is it bad?
And
like
for those that haven't come in at the beginning of the conversation, is it good or bad that Cleetus is in the series at all? Period. Correct.
Is it good that Cleetus is moving up at the rate that he is?
Right.
Is it good that he's going to be in a car that's going to be, if he can get through Rockingham, going to be one of the faster cars at Talladega and Daytona in the O'Reilly series? And is the current approval process, as I've explained it to you, and if you have questions on it, please ask. I'm not an expert, but I can kind of provide enough. With all of this stuff being said, do you think it's good, or do you think, okay, if you want to move up to, say, O'Reilly's, you need to have at least 20 ARCA starts or something like that? Like, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth or lead the conversation. Right. But that's kind of what I'm looking. I want to know your opinion.
I mean, is it fast? Yeah, it's definitely to me it's too fast. I mean, I think you need to have like half a season under your belt and something to be able to move up. But do I think that it's a bad and it shouldn't happen? No, I think it should happen. Dude can drive. It's not like you're putting Joe Schmo in the car. He owns his own track. He races cars. He drags cars. He's a car person. Like, this is not like you're not throwing some random in there. For me, I mean, like we said on the previous thing, yes, this is a good thing, and it's something that kind of NASCAR needs a little bit. They need that injection of fandom. They need that injection of new blood. They need, quite frankly, a good story, and this is a really good story. And is he moving up too fast? I will answer that question directly with yes. I think he is moving up too fast. I'll follow that up with, do I think that he can't handle it? No, I think he can handle it. the dude seems to be very driven, motivated on many fronts of his life. So it's not like he's not going to Lance Stroll it. Let's say where
Right. You don't
phone it in.
Here's a newsflash.
Lance Stroll's been doing the last 5 years. So
here's a newsflash to anyone watching, and this isn't again to prop us up or anything like that, because we are like literally at like maybe 1% of what Cleetus is, maybe, and that's being generous to us. But YouTube isn't as easy as just putting a camera on yourself and making money.
Exactly.
You know,
you
have to be driven. You have to work hard. You have to have a plan.
Yeah.
You know,
the way YouTube used to be is it was just a bunch of really good editors with personalities. That's all YouTube used to be. Now it is drastically different than that. It is a full-time business operation. You have to have personality. You need to know how to edit. You need to know how to do business acumen. You need to know how to reach out to sponsors. You need to know how to drive. You need to know how to do this, that, and the other thing specifically for cars. So this is like, it's a full-fledged thing. And we're not even scratching the surface. Like, we have full-time jobs on top of this. If we did this for, a living, it would be to the nth degree. So yeah, this is like, Cleetus is not somebody that's just gonna like fall on his face and not get back up or flop at it. So I don't know the guy personally, but from what I've seen with his driving, with his business acumen, and how he does videos, with the people that I've talked to about him that know him, Freddie Hernandez Tavares being one of them. He knows him. We have another friend, Dan, that knows him as well, or at least that has been around him. Everyone's spoken very highly of him. So I think that he can handle it just fine, quite frankly. And to all of the armchairs, NASCAR people that are saying, oh, it's too fast and blah, blah, blah. Let's just wait and see. That's how songs used to get popular. Now that before they had all this, before they had all this market research and these test groups and blah, 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 and AI making music and blah, whatever, this and the other thing, they used to make a song, they put it on the radio, and they say, hey, let's see if people like this. So I say we have that mentality with Cleetus.
And the music was better when they did that.
Very, very true. So, in that case, let's take that mentality with Cleetus. Can the kid drive? Let's throw him in a car and let's see. And if you can, it might be better for it. And it might be a better product because of it. So,
right. I look at it from the standpoint of, if you listen to the way he talks, he gets it. He gets it. Mm-hmm. He understands that if he's going to be anywhere near decent, he's not going to just, like, even if he has a fast car, he has to log laps. He has to gain experience. He has to not be a detriment. Like, the worst possible thing that could happen is Cleetus takes out the leader while they're lapping him. And he knows that.
Right.
So I think he absolutely gets it. He is also sitting in the... Remember, NASCAR does not have the practice time that it used to. You get like 30 minutes. Like maybe
nothing.
I think you get like 30 minutes before quali and 30 minutes after, or in some cases you don't even get the second practice.
It used to be an hour or two.
So how the hell, when all of these guys were coming up through the ranks doing their old school stuff, you used to be able to log a shit ton of laps in practice. You had unlimited testing. You could do all of this stuff. Mm-hmm. Right? Now it's all done in the sim. Well, good news on that front. RCR has a hell of a sim. It has a sim connected directly to General Motors.
Pretty damn good.
So he can log lap after lap after lap, overlay data, time and time, in real time. Work with the people that's going to be on his pit box, or at least adjacent to those people. Is it as good as the real thing? No, because who was saying it? Might have been Hamlin. And I feel this way 100%. The only way you feel what the front end of your cars, that's really bad imagery. You feel what the front end of your car is doing with your hands on the steering wheel. Excuse me. And you feel what the ass end of the car is doing literally through your butt cheeks. Which is why I enjoyed the E46 M3 so much, because no car I've driven before or since has connected. Like, I've never felt more connected with the rear end of a car than I did in that car. But he's going to learn where to brake, where to carry speed. He's going to learn where all four corners of his car is, even though it's in the digital world. He's going to learn where these guys are faster than him, where they're slower than him, which is going to make passing him easier. Mm-hmm. I just think this quick discounting of who he is, what he's going to do, and just assuming he's going to wreck everyone is just extremely short-sighted.
Yeah, I hate that.
Because let's face it, there have been drivers who have come up to Cup, come up to whatever level in NASCAR. In their first few races, they've been an absolute menace on the track. And we're not talking about any of them. Bubba Wallace is one. You know, look at the guy you're spotting for, Freddie.
Right.
But again, I get it. I get that he has a non-conventional route. So I also get when these guys like Freddie Kraft, all these guys, when they speak about the approval process, I understand that it's coming from a place of, we're frustrated about this. We see a bunch of people coming through that shouldn't be. Cleetus just happens to be the biggest. Cleetus is going to be the reason why they can make, like, it's going to bring more attention to what they've been trying to say, even though I haven't really seen them try to say a bunch, but it is what it is. At any rate, the Ace Steeler 101 over on YouTube, and what appears to be one of our Australian fans, he goes, speaking of the approval process, I know this happened in supercars. All the supercars fans and drivers won't be happy about it, saying the Super 2s that the reason that it's... Okay, I think the point you're trying to make is that the drivers have to do at least 2 years in Super 2 to advance the supercars, which is in line with what you said. The Australian Motorsport Commission is a subsection of the FIA. And the FIA does have this, you have to accrue a bunch of different points or license requirements in lesser series. I get it.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily think it's a bad idea. And not for nothing, I don't necessarily think if Cleetus was just in ARCA this year, that would have been a bad thing for him content-wise or anything. I think this thing sort of steamrolled. And I think there's an element of Greg Biffle got him in the door with this stuff. And there's an element of taking every opportunity to like honor the effort Greg did for Cleetus in his NASCAR journey. Like, you know, I can't imagine what he went through and stuff like that, but like trying to honor a friend like that, I could get that element of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, J-Pole kind of echoes the same thing. He's moving quick. I think that's part of Greg Biffle passing. Wow, if I had read this comment first, it would have been a lot seamless. Everybody looked at him big time after that. I mean, he's moving fast, but I agree with Greg on the panel. He can handle it. Hey, someone in chat agrees with you. One demerit.
No, one up merit.
And then he goes on to say is that NASCAR is losing a big fan base. So there's your soup. That's exactly it. NASCAR was popular because of the drivers in the late 90s and early 2000s. When those guys started to retire and fall off, combined with some other not so great decision making by NASCAR concerning the championship format is one of those things, popularity plummeted. The fact that you can bring new personality into the sport and kind of give it that feel of, you know, maybe when a lot of these guys were growing up when they were kids, I think that's a plus. And again, the truck race did the best numbers it's done in the last like 10 or 15 years. And Cleetus was in the race for 6 laps. Don't look at Cleetus' involvement as a potential catastrophe. Look at the opportunity it presents.
Right.
Could you imagine, like, if a driver in, say, O'Reilly's were like, Cleetus, you are now my best friend. What that could do for that driver in terms of his career, his ability to attract sponsors, his ability on social media, like, all of it. Look at what it did for Carson Hocevar. He was persona non grata last year because he was driving like a wild man. Now we have guys like Richard Petty saying he reminds him of a young Dale Earnhardt. Because he has a big fan base. Because he's Not going to change who he is. He is who he is, and he's exciting. Whether it's good or it's bad, it's going to be exciting. The ace goes, why if NASCAR was part of the FAA, maybe the Cleetus McFarland whole outlook with his approval would change.
Maybe not.
Absolutely, because, well, the FAA has their way of doing things, and NASCAR has their way of doing things. I don't know much about quote-unquote grassroots level racing within the FIA, or if that's even a thing, or whether it's more regionalized than that. I'd say this pretty confidently. There's no way on this or God's green earth that at any point in NASCAR's history would they even remotely think about aligning themselves from a rule set for that stuff with the FIA. No, could you imagine Billy Joe? Could you imagine like Billy Joe down in Alabama running NASCAR or something, or North Carolina sitting here and say, all right, you know what we should do? We should follow the French.
Yeah, that's not real. There's no way that's happening.
But I get where you're coming from. Like their process is a little bit more logic based. You know, it is what it is.
You could also say that's a good thing that NASCAR doesn't have FIA stuff, because they have opportunities to have things like this happen.
Right. And then J. Paul goes like, look at what Cleetus has done for himself. Back to that. The dude knows how to work hard and have an end goal and reach that end goal, which is huge. Cleetus has a Chevy emblem pool, correct, which is hilarious. It is unreal. His own airport. He has multiple planes, multiple helicopters, I think, or at least he did. He's making moves. Told Score one day that a house would be in the middle of the lake at Daytona. That'd be hilarious to have that'd be hilarious to own a house on that lake. Number one. Number two, imagine it like as an Airbnb.
No, that'd be so sick. Like, oh yeah, by the way, you're staying at the 500. Where? In the middle of it.
Yes. Which is arguably the worst place to watch it, but
I mean, yes, but I mean, I'm sure you would get lots of VIP access with that.
And J. Paul adds some context. He goes, I'm 65, by the way. Hey, man, thanks for watching. And left NASCAR when they divided the races into segments. Totally get that sentiment. And stopped showing all the races on over-the-air TV. That cut out a lot of people couldn't afford to pay for pay TV. And that was it. Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say that NASCAR has made an overabundance of brilliant ideas. I mean, was I talking about this with you? No, I was talking with someone else about this. Look at it from this perspective. NASCAR has 3 TV providers, and it's at different points in the season. First part, Fox. Is every race on Channel 5? Fox, over the air, free TV? No. It's on Fox. It's on Fox Sports. Where's qualifying and practice? Some variation of Fox Sports, or you may even have to get the Fox Sports app. Then it switches to Prime, which Prime does Prime actually covers some of the practices. So, and they stream it on YouTube, so you can watch that free or what have you. And they're doing that even now while Fox has the reins of the TV. Prime, guess what? That's another chunk of change. And that's only for like 6 races, I think. That number could be wrong, but it's not a lot. And then it shifts to NBC. And the races are on NBC and USA. So at bare minimum, NASCAR is racing on one of 5 networks in the Cup Series. And over here you have the CW, which is doing phenomenal ratings for the O'Reilly series on over-the-air TV. That should say something. But at the end of the day, the dollar talks. And it shouldn't in this case, because I think they will reap whatever money they lose by not signing the most expensive or lucrative TV deal will ultimately help the sport in terms of, okay, we're now getting a shit ton more viewers, which means we can command more from sponsors, yada, yada, yada. You know, and J. Paul continues, it's actually Cleetus and Biff that brought me back along with Dale Jr. So I'm right there with you to a point where I was starting to get back into NASCAR last year with SVG. Just because it was something exceptional. It was highlighting an exceptional talent within motorsport. And it had nothing to do with the dumbass way championship. It almost superseded the stupidity of stage racing, or at least throwing a caution at the end of a stage race, because then you end up with races like we had at Phoenix, where you had 3 or 2 breaks for the stages and then a bunch of cautions, like, or what have you. But like, it was something exceptional, and even though he's not a big personality, he was different. He's from New Zealand. He talks a different way. He looks at motorsport a different way. And when it comes to road courses, he's insanely good. And from there, then you had the stuff with Cleetus coming back into ARCA and all that stuff. And now I'm starting to watch NASCAR again. And of course, when I start talking about these two things on our pick a social media, it's resonating with people. So now I'm more like, now I watch both as a fan and as a creator, whereas before, watching it as a creator felt like doing my homework. So
yeah, good point.
So that's that. And then lastly, and we can be quick about let me just touch J-Pole. They would, why am I reading this? I'm over here like squinting, looking at the small font of chat as opposed to just reading it from the big font that's right over here. They'd make double if they show the races on over-the-air TV, because the fans who can attend would watch every commercial for every race, buy their products, even go to a race close to them. I mean, yeah. I mean, if they're anything like me, I turn the race on, pause it, go do stuff for 15 minutes to a half hour, come back, and then fast forward through all the commercials. But if that's not your style of watching TV, I totally get it. Here's the thing. If you put it on a platform that's free to air, you're going to have more eyes, and you can charge more for sponsorship. Simple marketing 101 type stuff. So yeah, long and short of it is, guys need to just fucking relax, see what Cleetus can do. If he makes a mess of it, then yeah, he's earned this a little bit more. So far, he's spun out in a truck race and hasn't ruined anyone else's race. So let's give the guy some slack. Let's see what he does. Overall, he's good for the sport. Let's just ride the wave.
Agree.
And then lastly, and we'll keep this one short. Greg, you were privy to an argument that Hanson and I had over the weekend about Formula One.
Yes.
And the new regulations and how it created exciting race. Oh, hold on. I'm not going to try to steer your opinion. Reports were that it was creating more exciting racing by having more overtakes early in the race until Ferrari'd themselves with some dog shit strategy.
As per usual.
What is your take on the new regs? Have you watched any sort of like the recaps and stuff of the Melbourne race?
Yeah.
And as I would say, the voice of reason of shifting lanes, as terrifying as that is, to say, where do you stand on this?
To me, I'll be 100% honest. It's way too early to tell. We have one race in the bag with completely new cars. Nobody should have an opinion yet, is my opinion. Like if we're already talking about this, like it's like, oh, I think in July, the Seahawks are going to win the Super Bowl. It's the same exact thing. Like
R.I.P. to Kenneth Walker, by the way.
I know. Oh man.
Greg's a Seahawks fan, in case you couldn't pick it up from that context.
Horrible. Why would you let him walk?
Because you don't pay running backs like their second or third contract.
Look, Zach Charbonnet's fine. He's good running back. But
yeah, but do you really want your running back on a football team to sound like it's some sort of like exclusive French wine?
I was going to say French bubbly beverage. No, I do not. Either way, terrible. I think the race, I did watch a couple of recaps. Some of them were longer than others, so it was like not just the highlights. It seemed interesting, at least, which is great, quite honestly, because sometimes when you have these new rules and regs, one team is just like way ahead of the others.
Mercedes.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't seem like that's the case right now. It seems
absolutely
like others
is the case, but continue.
It seems like others have figured it out a bit better than the others. But this is also Formula One, and it's modern Formula One, as in the last 5 to 10 years Formula One. They're going to figure it out quicker now, because Mercedes was very dominant from like 2014 to 2020. I would argue that
2021. They won the constructors title and the
Well,
actual drivers title.
No, yeah, that's true. But I'm saying, like, by the end of that era, that longer era, everyone sort of had it figured out, and there was more competitive nature in it. In this sort of bubble era where Max dominated, there was a lot of competitiveness to it, especially with McLaren, obviously, and McLaren winning constructors and drivers title with Lando last year. But again, people were figuring it out faster, and I would argue that F1 has never been more competitive because everyone, this season aside, up until this season, F1 has never been more competitive in the top, tier of the series. Because let's be honest, there are 2, maybe even 3 tiers to the series a lot of the time. But if I'm going by the first race, and I won't, do anything more than this. If we're going by the first race, it was very interesting. It was exciting in the sense of there was a lot of overtaking, but the overtaking itself wasn't that exciting, if that makes sense.
It was fake.
Correct.
It was legitimate. It was like drivers were literally saying, it's like when I had battery, it was like the guy didn't. It was like they were in a Formula 2 car.
Right.
Which sound better and make more internal combustion horsepower, by the way.
Yes.
And if you're not watching that, I suggest people should start watching that because it's actually pretty damn exciting. And Colton Herta, an American boy in there trying to rise up.
Yeah.
It's worth a watch.
I think it's very interesting. I think what people are going to get back to is natural drafting because there was a lot of natural drafting, it seemed, and then they just immediately went to battery. And they immediately, what was Leclerc's thing? Is like, this feels like the mushroom from Mario Kart. It's just like, that's not at all what you need in Formula One. What you need is like something that's going to be a little bit more organic than that. And this whole push to pass thing seems to be very
it's a penalty. If you use it in one part of the lap, you will be slower in another section of the lap.
Right, exactly. So there's a lot more strategy that's involved, but on the straights, and I think we're going to see eventually, once they get all this figured out, I think in the high speed corners we're going to see a lot more natural drafting and people almost holding back to be able to have that battery boost at the end of a long straight where they weren't doing it. Some people right out of the first 2 corners, they were pushing the battery and they would get alongside and then the other person would pull back in and then it would just be this down the whole it's dumb. It seems dumb. But
it is
again, we're
biblically stupid.
And no one's figured anything else. I see potential for it to be incredibly exciting. But it's very much not there yet. I see potential for it. I didn't say it was. I said it was interesting.
No, I get what you're saying from
it's
like
very different than
as
how
someone
it's been in the last 10 years.
But funniest thing about this is that I don't know if I've disagreed with you more on any single topic we've talked about on this show, at least in recent memory.
Yeah.
I think all of that overtaking is artificial. I think you saw it in Melbourne, which admittedly is bad for these cars. But the chicane section at the end of the straight that isn't straight, they were super clipping through those corners, so they weren't even at full speed through those corners.
Mm-hmm.
In case you don't know what super clipping is, it's where literally the MG UK is in reverse. So the engine is literally driving the battery. Like it's a battery charging tactic, I guess is the best way to simplify it. Drafting was meaningless. Was absolutely pointless. Or the slipstream, if you drink your tea with your pinky up. If you drink tea at all. That stuff belongs in one place and one place only. Bottom of the Boston Harbor. I'm kidding. It has its place. And they even talked about this on the race broadcast, to your point about drafting. And this isn't, I'm not trying to actually you. You know what I mean?
No, that's fine. I didn't watch the race and have not been as entrenched.
And some of them, and I'm just trying to provide some context or what have you. But because of the straight line mode, you know what it's doing? It's not creating as much downforce, so there's less drag. That creates a smaller slipstream window or effect. And unlike the DRS of years past, the boost isn't free speed. The bill will come due. And the reason we saw so much overtaking was Russell would use the overtake to pass Leclerc and have nothing in the battery to defend at a different part of the track. Which, more than one person came out and said it's like Mario Kart. And I agree. It's like at some points you got the mushroom or you got the star or you got the, I'm going to slow Greg down with the turtle shell kind of a thing. Like, I get that. And the question I ask is this the pinnacle of motorsport? Because drivers are not attacking the braking zones like they would to pass. They are not at the limit of adhesion in some of the corners, which in my opinion they should be. And it has all become a game of, plugging your cell phone into the charger. Who can do that the best? I will admit it's early. I will admit, hey, we have to deal with this shit until 2031.
Right.
Thanks, Honda and Audi. Assholes.
Well,
I say that because there was a thing on the table to bring back naturally aspirated high revving V8s as soon as 2029. But Honda and Audi said they would leave F1 if they did that. So take that for what you will.
Yeah.
It just seems like 50-50 between ice and battery is too much. Especially if you limit the rate at which teams can recharge. Now, there are talks. I shouldn't say they are talks. FIA and the rules makers are going to be meeting after the race in Shanghai because of the cancellation to the races in the Middle East to potentially discuss changing the rule around how much the rate at which you can harvest energy. And a few other things, potentially giving the internal combustion engines more power. How they would accomplish that, I'm not sure, especially with this whole compression thing that they're going to be instituting midway through the season. But they're already have a meeting on the books to change some of the regulations, which to me is more telling than any talk from me, from you, from Hansen, from anybody is very telling. And I don't know. Like I said, it does not feel like. Thanks for watching, Jay Paul. Appreciate chatting with you, man. Have a great one.
Yeah. Also, we're here every week. Tell your friends. Come back. Bring some.
Yeah.
Every Wednesday.
And most of the time, Greg actually has good ideas, like you noticed today.
Most of the time. No.
To me, when I look at Formula One, it is the pinnacle of motorsports. And it is the pinnacle of motorsports in all things. Car, engine technology, aerodynamics, and arguably most importantly, driver skill. When we were growing up, our dads basically taught us that the guys in Formula One were the best drivers in the world. Or at the best at driving on pavement. Oh, sorry, J. Paul. I didn't mean to make it sound like that. I appreciate the sub, though. Our bad. Formula One makes my brain go, yeah, right now. But we were raised to think that when it comes to driving on road courses and street courses and stuff like that, Formula One guys were the best in the world at it. Because they could dive under the brakes. They were good at late braking. They were masters of riding that razor thin edge of being out of control. Every last thousandth of a second eking out of a car and stuff. And the modern cars do not showcase that in any way, shape, or form whatsoever, in my estimation. Again, we're stuck with it. It's going to be what we have. But I don't know, man. Like, it's
Yeah.
Again, it feels whole thing.
We will see.
We will see, but
much like the Cleetus situation, we will see.
This is more dire in my estimation. I think Cleetus will show up and be.
Well, yeah. I mean, if Cleetus falls out of NASCAR, it's not a dire situation. It's like, okay, well, we tried this experiment. We'll vet people differently in the future. Whatever. It's definitely a more dire scenario.
And like the thing of it is if you have drivers like, and the last thing I will say on this is, I think this is Lando Norris has said this and others have said this, but I think what everyone is kind of missing. Okay, the racing is artificial. There's a real concern about safety. There were drivers sitting on the grid when lights went out with no battery. Zero.
Yeah,
the Mercedes were one of them. Max was another one. The closing, it's always been one of the most dangerous spots of any race, but as we've gotten into the modern age of Formula One, this year notwithstanding, the get off was always, it wasn't as bad as it used to be. Back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, the starts was the most dangerous part of the race because you could sit here and you could have a gap and you could have way more overspeed than the car in front of you, pull out, and there's a car stationary on the grid.
Right. Yeah. That's happening. Well, it happened.
It happened at Melbourne. Mm-hmm. And not for nothing, but there's going to be a situation that above 50 kilometers per hour, somebody has half the horsepower you do.
Yeah, that's insane.
Unless they figure something out with this, that's going to end in tears. I hope it's not an injury, but something's going to happen. And then on the straights, same thing, only faster. You have guys deploying 1,000 horsepower, and you have guys deploying 550-ish horsepower. Like, the closing speeds.
Yeah. It was noticeable. We'll leave it at that.
So, again, I'm following Greg on a high-speed straight. I'm gaining. I'm in the draft. I'm gaining. I'm going to pull out to go for a maneuver. All of a sudden, there's a car in front of me, a car in front of Greg that he's going around, going 30, 40 miles an hour slower. Like, that's the thing with this regulation. It's like when that stuff starts to creep in, yeah, the performance stuff, yeah, this, but now you have situations where this is going to be a thing. Like, you're going to have to put spotters out there for these guys. You're just going to have to do it. Like, that's the thing.
So. I mean, that's actually a pretty good idea, quite honestly.
At any rate, and then lastly, I'll touch on it. You have the Ace Stealer going, Oscar spin, yeah, just randomly out of the fucking blue. 100 extra kilowatts, which is, I think, like 60 more horsepower in Eagles. But, like, just instantly. Like, remember, we talk about electric motors, right? Instantly. They're in a driver on this earth. If you're on a slip angle and adhesion of your rear tires, who's not going to spin out with that? And on the opposite side of the thing, Max Verstappen had these similar thing happen only in reverse, where it just suddenly wanted to regen a hell of a lot more than it was and locks the rear tires.
Yeah.
And then lastly, J. Paul goes, yes, Formula One are the best drivers. I place Indy second, but didn't Indy drivers beat F1 drivers in a race-off? They may have. I'm trying to remember if there was any sort of thing like IROC or the Race of Champions, the international one that combines like NASCAR, F1, rally car drivers. in recent memory that I can think of, it's usually the rally drivers that are beating the crap out of everyone because that style of racing suits them more than anything else. But to your point, yes, we need to bring that back and have like a race in like something. But
yes.
But I really want to appreciate. I really want to thank everyone for tuning in. We had a decent amount of new faces, or not as common faces in here. Jay Pole, the Ace Stealer. I just want to thank you guys so much for popping in, being a part of the show, commenting in chat. That's what we do here. There's a reason why we don't just record a podcast and then publish it. You guys are in many ways the third host. That's at least the goal of this show. Right. So we appreciate you. Thank you so much. And whenever you can, pop on in. We love to have you. But that's going to be a wrap on this show. And as always, we're going to close things out with Greg's dad advice of the week.
Yes. And it has to do with something Chad and I were talking about before the show even started. When you're 40, buy a firm bed. Your back will thank you. That's the dad advice of this week. Because when you go to a different bed, different pillow that you're used to, you could do that in your 20s and 30s. Not anymore.
Well, in your 20s and 30s, you could pass out on a fucking fireplace and be
on
fine.
The floor, a hardwood floor. And you'd be like, ooh, there's a comfy
But
spot.
I will piggyback on Greg's dad advice this week and just give you some old hat advice. Take care of yourself when you're younger.
Yes.
I cannot stress that enough. That'd be the one thing I would tell younger Chad. It's like, take care of your knees, take care of your back, and most importantly, take care of your shoulder. Because, ouch.
Yeah, and
but
in bed.
That's it. We'll see everyone next week at roughly the same time. But that's going to end this show.